Hey everybody, Roger Courville here at thevirtualpresenter.com talking about why you might have the wrong web conferencing software inside your organization. But let's attack it behaviorally. Let's start with how we tend to communicate individually or in groups offline, and then translate that into different ways that software is designed so that you can determine if you've got the right thing or not. Most common use cases: collaboration, presentation, facilitation, or training. Now here's the challenge. The most frequent use case of what we do in person tends to be meetings. So when IT, who's usually tasked with buying audio conferencing, then buys web conferencing, what they buy is that which is needed most frequently. Collaboration, or a meeting, tends to be reasonably co-equal at the table. Meaning, and it doesn't mean there's not somebody leading or facilitating that meeting, but what it means is that we all have reasonable need co-equal access to all of the tools. So a web conferencing solution designed for meetings tends to be most everybody has access to most of the tools, and somebody might have kind of the master control in terms of who gets access to what. And you can turn things on and off in a professional software, but it's still designed for everybody to have co-equal input. And say, for instance, in the meeting software, we all need chat, perhaps, so that we can do public or private chat. But what we don't usually need to do is field questions from, say, an external group, which might be the presentation modality, right? One or a few to many. Facilitation tends to be a combination of those, but with a critical difference. In adult learning, it's pretty important that we help facilitate dialogue and reflection and application and group work, which may or may not mean that you need to break people out into small groups. But here's the thing. Scale tends to go like this. Scale. Right? If at the smallest that would be a one-to-one meeting, and up here it's a potentially infinite number of people, that tends to be that bell curve right there. Now, on the other end, right, we also know that the best way, and this is one of the things that all of the educational literature, empirical research agrees on, right? The best way to train or teach is one-on-one. Now, we can't always do that for the sake of cost effectiveness, but that's why we tend to move this way with regard to facilitation. But a training group, frankly, if you're trying to train 500 people at one time, that's more a presentation. You're probably not facilitating ongoing group discussion, reflection, application, that kind of thing. So we've got kind of this bell curve in terms of how we scale, right? This is the same in person as in online. Now, what tools do we need when we collaborate is a lot less than, say, when we present at a webinar, where we may or may not want public chat, which some people also, do by facilitating that with Twitter or an online chat room like todaysmeet.com. But you also need other things like how does it deal with video differently. I don't need everybody to turn on their video. I only need the presenters to turn on their video. I need all these people to type in questions that only these people can see, and then give them a choice for how they respond, which then is, of course, again, a little bit different in terms of how we do that when we move into a training situation. The thing is, here is the big differentiator, which is the complexity of how that gets managed. If you're going to manage an online class, you might need to hand out a participant guide, and then a little bit later you hand out and have them watch a video, or things that or have them break out into small groups or not, whatever that happens to be. But the sum total of managing a class tends to be more complex in terms of how do we translate that to software. So a very frequent question that I get is, well, how do I engage, how do I engage my learners? The problem often is in terms of creating that sense of disconnect, or, this is just a subpar alternative to meeting or training in person, is that you're using a meeting software or even a presentation or webinar software instead of a training-oriented software. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody needs this, and it doesn't mean every time you do a training that's what you need, but it is why you find that, say, Webex has Webex Meeting Center, Webex Training Center, or Event Center, and Webex Training Center. And why Citrix has GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, GoToTraining, right? It's why Adobe Connect has different versions, right? Because the tools, even though there's polling and screen sharing, and I can show a video or not show a video, or whatever those tools are, how they are configured has a lot to do with how they facilitate online activity and communication and group coordination and communication more effectively than more effectively or less effectively or more analogously to the in-person experience. So scale tends to go like this, but the big differentiator tends to be complexity. And if you're using a software that's not really designed to facilitate the nature of the communication, you very well might find that you're leaving experience on the table, meaning people are more bored, more chance of them checking out, and ultimately means you're leaving money on the table. Roger Courville at thevirtualpresenter.com. Catch you next time.